Greetings, students, and welcome to this episode of The Professor Travel. I am your host, The Professor Travel, coming to you from Orange County, California. This is the website, the vlog, and the podcast that you come to in order to learn more about different travel destinations. Hopefully, this will inspire you to discuss more, to travel more, and enjoy life more. Now, you can reach me on a variety of different social media platforms, including, of course, my website at theprofessortravel.com. But you can also reach me on YouTube, Facebook, and now on TikTok at The Professor Travel. If you're an Instagrammer, you can find me there at the_professor_travel. If you're a Twitter I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm not sure. You can find me there at the Professor TR1. And then finally, if you're a blogger, you can find me on Blogspot at theprofessortravel.blogspot.com. Today, I am so very excited to be interviewing a very kind friend of mine, Ishaan Gokhale. Hi, Ishaan. How are you doing today?
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. I really appreciate it. Now, before we get started, this picture that's up on our screen here is a picture for those who are listening to the podcast. It's a picture of Ishaan in a pile of snow with a penguin right in front of him. Can you tell us really quickly before we get into your credentials a little bit more about this picture that you took or had taken?
Yeah, this is an interesting photo of not just this photo itself, but what happened before and after this photo was taken. So this is on the Antarctic continent as opposed to one of the islands that are outside Antarctica. It was my first landing of Antarctica on this voyage, second trip, but first landing on the second trip. And yeah, as you can see, blue skies, clear sky, beautiful day. And we visited this, they're called Adelie penguins, this particular species of penguins.
Mm-hmm.
So we visited this colony of Adelie penguins. And we are not allowed to really approach the penguins. So the guides, we had lots of guides on on our expedition, and they told us just sit down, and if you sit down, you're kind of less threatening to the penguins, and they will come to you. So this one approached me. Uh, uh, there was another penguin just before this who also came up to me, and for some reason he looked at my blue pants over there, and he started chewing on my pants. And I don't know. I might have had some fish guts on my pants or something. I don't know. um, and I actually took a video of that too. I have a video of it. Very interesting. And I kind of screamed out in that video, like, "Don't eat my pants!"
You don't really think of penguins as being this ferocious bird. So, I mean, there you go.
Yeah. And that kind of became like a catchphrase kind of thing between some of the friends I made on the ship.
Don't eat my pants.
So they would tease me about that later on.
Oh, that sounds like you had a good time, though.
A few minutes after this photo was taken, as you can see, it's perfect weather right now. And here's Antarctica for you, or any polar region, really. Weather can change in an instant. And immediately after this, there was a strong storm that was coming in, and the snow started blowing. It was like not a good time to be there. All the guides came up to us and say, "Hey, let's go. We got to get out of here." And uh, we were all told to just stand up, start walking towards basically the embarkation area for the Zodiac boats to come pick us up and take us back to the ship.
Okay.
And while we were walking, the winds were like behind my back, and they were fast winds. Like I was sliding on the snow. So that's just like a lesson in, don't.
When they say to do something, do it now, especially when you're and as you alluded to, this whole vlog and podcast is going to be talking about the continent of Antarctica, where you've actually gone a couple of times. But before we even get into that, and I'm so eager to learn all about it, talk to us a little bit about some of your credentials, maybe just a little bit, just a snapshot about your education. But you've obviously traveled a lot of places, so can you go into that really fast?
Yeah. So my education has basically been my travels. I like to say that travel is a great teacher, and I've been traveling on my own basically since 1994. Uh, every chance I got, I was always out somewhere, long weekends, irregular weekends, over the holidays, Christmas, New Year, Thanksgiving, all the long vacations. Um, I was always traveling, either a road trip or a flying trip somewhere in the world. It's kind of my lifestyle.
Yeah,
Um,
and in fact, we were talking just recently about like because I'm keeping track of my countries that I've been
mhm,
to just
mhm.
because I want to. It's kind of a goal of mine to kind of track them and kind of
Right.
figure out how many I've been to. And I said I've been to 23, and you're like, hold my coffee.
I
Let
did
me.
not say that. I did not say that.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're friends.
I would never say
Uh,
that.
and by the way, Ishan and myself, we went to grade school together, so I can make funny comments like that. But you've been to a lot of countries. You'd say when you stopped counting, it was at least over 50.
Yeah. New Zealand was number 50. I remember that.
Wow.
And then I figured, like, the world is a big place. There's no real point to not to lessen your task or anything, but uh, there's really, I mean, there's so much to see and do in the world. It's where do you stop, right? It's a
Yeah.
lifelong process.
Well, I think we stop when
Um,
there's a pandemic
uh,
going on, unfortunately,
well,
and that kind of
yeah.
sidelines us. So, but apart from that, I'll eventually catch up. I'm hoping. Yeah. So, wish me luck on that.
Mhm.
Now, you obviously made the choice to go to Antarctica, and Antarctica is not its own country, but it is its
No,
own continent, and it's a providence that's I think
yeah,
nobody owns it. I don't think.
right. Nobody owns it. I don't remember when it was signed, but there was a treaty that was signed among all the nations in the world, almost all, that said that Antarctica should never belong to any one country, or any group of countries for that matter. So it's meant to be preserved as it is. There are lots of science expeditions from practically every country that has the means to go there and can set up bases over there. Um, but otherwise, it's a pristine, like it's there's no human uh, encroachment on the whole continent anymore. There used to be about 100 years ago, not anymore.
I've seen some of those like
Um,
huts that were there at one point that have been preserved in time almost.
yes, they are. There are. We saw a couple of them. Yeah.
That's
Um,
impressive.
there, were- there were whaling stations that were there like more than 100 years ago, right around the time of Sir Shackleton and his expeditions.
Mhm. So when you're planning a trip like this, because you can't there's not like a bunch of cruises that head over to Antarctica. It's not exactly something you just go, oh, this weekend I think I'll make a choice to go to Antarctica.
Yeah, no, it's not like that. It needs a lot of planning. Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about the planning stage. How long in advance did you decide, okay, I'm going to do this. Here's what I need to start as far as the planning stage. What was the time frames on that, something like that?
I have to be honest with you. It's always been on my mind. Like any other place in the world, it's always on my mind. Um, the thing is, I seriously started looking at it back in around 2003, 2004, when I started traveling internationally for the first time. I was saying, hey, why not Antarctica? And it was too expensive. I mean, it is very, very expensive to go there. And every year kept looking for different companies, different voyages that go there. And the prices just keep going up every year. Like, I think if I remember correctly, when I first started, it was around like $4 or $5,000 for one person, single cabin. Um, and it just next year I see it's now 5,000, it's now 7,000, 10,000. It
So
just
it's
kept
like,
going up and up. And even now I'm looking for next year. It's still way up there. I mean, for a single cabin on a trip, that the kind of trip that I took, which was around 3 weeks, this second trip, I mean, the second photo that you see there,
mhm.
um, for a 3 week long trip, the prices are approaching like $20,000 or even more for one person. So
Oh,
it is very expensive to go.
yeah, it's an
So you do need
investment.
to save. Right, exactly. And it's 3 weeks. You're talking like more than $1,000 a day on the average, right? So you have to save up for it for a long time if you're not independently wealthy. Um,
I was gonna actually ask you, when you were starting to plan this out, did you start to look at, okay, well, if I leave from South America, it's going to cost this much versus if I leave from Africa or
yeah,
Australia, it's
well,
going to
I
cost
I
this
looked at it
much.
briefly, and then I looked at it briefly. I realized they're all the same,
Okay.
because it would cost me money to fly to New Zealand or wherever, right, where the
Yeah.
other trips leave from. Um, so I was like, okay, South America was the closest point. That's where I left from.
Okay, cool. And in terms of things to plan for in advance, now, how do you get a visa for something like this? I mean,
Yeah.
do you just do it,
So
use your passport, or how does that
yeah.
work?
So fortunately, I'm a U.S. citizen. So You have to go to Brazil. Um, the most of the trips they start from either Ushuaia. That's a town in the southern tip of South America in Argentina.
Okay.
So I flew, well, a couple of ways to do it. I flew to Argentina, but you can, the way the flights work, you can go through Brazil or wherever to get there. Um, so you fly to Argentina. Argentina does not need a U.S. It does not need a visa for U.S. citizens.
Okay.
So you can just go. It's like going to Europe or
Okay.
Canada. And there's another way to get there from Chile, which is the Chile trips are actually fly. You fly to Antarctica either one way or both ways instead of taking a ship. Um, and you basically fly to a Chilean Air Force, sorry, not Air Force, but Chilean base over there, a
Hmm.
science base. Um, and then you can either take a ship from there or you can, whatever
Yeah, but
basically fly back.
if the weather's not cooperating
If the
with
weather
you,
is not cooperating, you're stuck. Yeah,
that would be terrible.
that yeah.
I would think.
Hmm.
Now, let me ask you really quick because I have, as I get older, I have some stomach ailments and I have things like that. In terms of travel medications, like how do you plan for something like that? And
Yeah. So let me tell you about myself too. I get seasick on boats. I cannot stand being on a ship like more than an hour on the open ocean.
okay.
Um, I get very, like really bad seasick. So I obviously had a lot of Dramamine. I had those kinds of medicines with me.
Hmm.
Um, I got like crackers because they're supposed to absorb whatever stomach acids you have if you chew on crackers and stuff, like saltine crackers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, but it really, and there were other people on the ship that were, for example, uh, they only could do gluten free, you
Hmm.
know, or strict vegetarians, vegans, uh, kosher diet, So the good thing was that the ship accommodated everyone, no matter what.
Nice.
So you just had to tell them in advance that, hey, I have these special diet restrictions and stuff, uh, and they will take care of you. That's not at all an issue,
Okay.
at least with the company that I went with, and I think it's true for all companies. And in terms of medication, you've got to figure out yourself, like if you need, how much medication you need for 3 weeks or whatever the length of the trip is. Obviously, as always, you should take some extras and
Yeah, because
whatever.
there's not exactly a
Uh,
7-Eleven around the corner for
no,
you
there
if you
is
want to
not.
pick up something if
There
you're
is
down there.
there is nothing like that anywhere.
Yeah, and especially like with unlike conventional cruises where it's maybe a week or 2 weeks, you're dealing with almost something that's 3 weeks to a month in some cases. So in those,
They start with 1 week.
oh, they do.
Like there's an introduction trip that is just 7 days,
Okay.
and that's actually the one I took first time. um, and it simply wasn't enough for me. So I said I want to go again for 3 weeks.
So, but when you're looking at those longer vacations, and this goes out to my students that are watching right now, if you have a situation where you know that you're going to maybe you're prone to headaches or maybe you have stomach ailments, you might want to just go to your local store, get a pill carrier, and bring with you
Right,
like stomach things,
right.
headache
That's
things,
right. That's
band-aids.
true. Yeah, that's true. Anytime you go traveling anywhere in the world, it doesn't really have to be Antarctica. Although in Antarctica, as you said, there are no 7-Elevens, there are no pharmacies, nothing like that.
I'd wonder who would be manning them there. That would be kind of a tough thing. So let's.
Although there is a post office, and I can talk about that later.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, we're going to get
Hmm.
into that in just a minute, but
Okay.
let's talk about the pre-packing process.
Hmm.
What do you pack for? Let's talk about the longer one. Like, what do you pack for something like this? How do you even
Right.
prepare for some to go to a place where it's so cold that's much colder than any other place on the earth?
Right. Uh, so yeah, you need a sweater or two. You need a jacket. Uh, uh, Honestly, though, it's not that bad. Um, so, uh, could I pause for a minute and I
Sure, of
can go get
course.
my jacket right
Yeah,
now?
please go right ahead.
Mhm.
Show us what you got.
Yep.
Wow.
So that was my parka that they gave us.
So they actually gave that to you?
Yeah, it's covered in the cost of the trip.
Oh,
They
nice.
give you that when you come on board the ship. Obviously, you have to tell them your size and all that beforehand, and they'll have that for you. and they
Okay.
also gave us boots. Um,
Okay.
so you have to tell your shoe size, boot size. They provide you with boots on board. Uh, the parka is mine to keep.
Okay.
Uh, the
What about
boots?
the blue pants that you had?
No, that's mine. Those are
Okay.
ski pants.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Um,
That's why
so
the penguin was attracted to it because like, ooh, we don't get this. We don't exactly have a Macy's around the corner here, so there you go. No, I'm just
um,
kidding. REI is what it would be.
yeah, right. Actually, that's where I got them from. Yeah.
Oh well, there you go.
Uh,
See, I'm psychic like that.
so yeah, so they give you a parka. It has a nice fleece lining inside it, uh, and you have your. I had two jackets on top of that.
okay. Are
Um,
you restricted to a number of bags that you can bring with you?
you are restricted to the total uh, baggage. Now, I forget if it was by weight or the number of pieces.
Okay.
I forget what they said for that, but yeah. Um, but honestly, like if you have one, uh, like a check-in size bag, like a normal check-in size bag for a person, plus one like backpack, you really need a backpack actually
Okay.
for the excursions. Uh, that should be more than enough. I mean, you don't really need to like buy like 100 different sweaters and jackets and stuff like that
Do you
because they
just
give
need
you
like
this on top of everything else. And
do they just need like a smaller backpack or do you need like
you
a
could.
full
I
size
actually had
camper
a
backpack?
travel. I actually had my carry-on size bag,
Okay.
roller bag. So that was enough for me. Some people prefer more. That's fine, but you really don't need that much more. Now, I also had my own gloves.
Okay.
Um, they told you to get preferably waterproof gloves,
Okay.
and more than one layer of gloves because the wind is just horrible if it gets windy and cold. So a couple of layers of gloves, couple of I had a hat like a face covering.
Hmm.
Um, I had earmuffs, like for actually that was part of my cap over there. They had like flaps that go over your ear,
Okay.
and that's just me because it just it varies from person to person. I get really cold when I'm out in freezing temperatures. So
No, and I remember like I moved to New Jersey a couple of years ago, and I remember walking through the streets of New York early on, and I didn't have gloves, I didn't have a face covering, I didn't have earmuffs, and I was like, oh well, those are just fashion accessories. Why would I need those? No, if you're
you
in
need them.
cold weather, you need them. They're
Yeah,
really really helpful. So
yeah.
I absolutely understand. And layering, very
Hmm.
important also.
Layering is critical.
Yeah,
Um, and in fact, there were times when I was taking off my parka. It was hot. It was actually really hot. You know,
yeah. Did
um,
they have laundry facilities on the ship?
on the ship, yes, they do.
Okay,
They charge you like what a hotel would charge you.
okay,
You know, but they do have it.
okay. Um,
Also, one key thing is waterproof pants. So ski pants, for example, what I had,
mhm.
but you need them to be waterproof. That's absolutely critical, and they actually won't even let you on board the ship if you don't have the waterproof pants.
Because you could like seriously get hypothermia if you don't like
Yeah,
if you're not dressed properly. So
yeah,
no, that
and
makes perfect
also there
sense.
are times when, like, I can talk about this later too, but when you're going for these landings, there are times when you have to get into the water.
Hmm.
You go on a Zodiac boat, which is like a small rubber, motorboat, and you take that from the ship, which is anchored off the coast. You take that Zodiac onto the land,
Okay.
and there are times when you have to get in the water and walk through the water to get to the land, to the beach. Uh, so you must have waterproof pants, otherwise they won't even let you on.
And that's more of a safety issue and liability issue on their part, I
Yeah,
would imagine.
yeah,
So, okay. So those are a couple of things. And then I imagine the rest of what you're packing is going to be appropriate for your preliminary destination like Brazil or
yeah.
Argentina.
Right,
It's normal clothing at that point.
right. Normal, right.
Okay, cool. So let's talk about the way that you got there. Now, which airport did you leave out of in order to make your
So
initial
I flew out
choice?
of San Francisco. I live in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And basically, I also have American Airlines frequent flyer mileage.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
I use that for a nice business class seat and bed and everything.
I was going to ask
Um,
before we get onto the flight though,
mhm.
did you just take like an Uber up to the airport? Did you park your car there for an extended
No, if
length of
I
time?
remember, no, no, no. If I remember correctly, I think my brother dropped me off. My brother also lives nearby.
Okay, perfect.
Uh, so
So
yeah,
that's not a problem. And
yeah. I
then
mean, whatever. People go to the airport lots of different ways, so you could take Uber, whatever.
okay.
Um,
So the flight itself,
mhm.
American Airlines.
So American Airlines flew to, well, they go to either Dallas or Miami. That's their hubs for going to South America.
Okay.
Um, and then from either Dallas or Miami, they fly to Buenos Aires, which is where I went.
And what's the length of the time between?
So San Francisco to Miami is 5 hours. To Dallas is like 3.5, 4 hours.
Okay.
And from either of those two cities to Buenos Aires is roughly between like 8 to 10 hours, something like that.
Okay. So it's a pretty lengthy
Uh,
trip,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
Okay. And then how was the service on your flight?
Well, so I had
First
a
class. Nice upgrade.
yeah. So I booked it with my miles, so I had a very nice experience on board. It would not be the same in coach. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I've we've done the coach flights that have been very long. I didn't really
Hmm.
like that, and then we've done the more
Yeah, I've gone
luxurious
like
flights.
16 hours in coach in American Airlines, Hong Kong to Dallas.
Yeah.
So that was not fun.
Yeah, I think most of my money when I'm traveling is probably going towards really getting good airfare as opposed to like I'll stay in a 3-star hotel when I go in some
Hmm.
places, and then I'll
Hmm.
upgrade to a better room at a 3-star hotel as
Hmm.
opposed to just purchasing a 5-star hotel.
Hmm.
So that's just my strategy. I don't know
Yeah,
if you
yeah, it
tend.
works. Yep,
Okay,
yep.
so you're on the
Hmm.
same mindset on that.
Yeah,
Okay,
especially if you're, the member of their clubs and all that, the
exactly.
frequent traveler things.
Oh, by the way, did you have the opportunity to use any of the facilities at the airports in terms of like the clubs or anything like that?
I do have that also. I have that
Okay.
access. And actually, also, since I was flying business class, that would also have given me the access anyway, regardless.
Okay. Perfect.
Um,
So you have this long flight to Buenos Aires, and talk to me a little bit about. We'll just talk a little snippet about Buenos Aires and how your time was there. How long were you in Buenos Aires for before you
just
started the
one night.
excursion? Just one night.
Just one night. So the this company had arranged the hotel. Like all you had to do is book the ticket to Buenos Aires. You just had to get there,
Okay.
and from that point on, everything was taken care of. Like all your accommodation, transportation, everything.
Wow. Okay. So
Um,
including transfers
so
from the airport.
yeah,
Okay.
I'm
Nice.
sorry, no, transfer from the hotel to the airport, not airport to hotel,
Okay. Got it.
because you'd arrive at different times and whatnot.
Okay.
So, um, so I just had to get to the hotel, which is fine. In Buenos Aires, they have a airport bus that takes you into the city.
Okay.
I do not want to take taxi cabs like that over there.
Not wrong.
Um, so I had mapped it out on, nowadays we have Google Maps and stuff. Back in the old days, we didn't have any of that. So um, I had mapped it out. Yeah, I want to stay in this hotel. Um, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Earlier, I said I was there for one night. I was actually there 2 nights.
Okay.
So
So
my
that
first
at
night
least
was
gives you
on
a
my
little bit of time to go out and do some stuff while you're
right.
there.
Well, I mean, I'd been before, so but
Okay.
anyway, my first night was on my own. So I booked the hotel myself, and you know, they had the cruise ship had booked another hotel in the city in downtown.
Okay.
So I went to my first night in the hotel, stayed there. That I had looked up. There's a bus from the airport that takes you right in front of the hotel stop, and that hotel was like about a mile and a half from the where the cruise ship hotel was going to be.
Mm.
So I was like, "Hey, this works. It's perfect." So, you know, I just stayed there. Next morning, I had no intention of doing any sightseeing in Buenos Aires. I'd been there before,
Okay.
so just take it easy. Check out at noon. You know,
Just kind of
just
be chill.
yeah,
Don't stress
absolutely.
it.
Don't
Don't
stress
don't
it.
cut
It's
it.
gonna
Don't
be
cut
a
it
stressful
close.
trip. Yeah, it's gonna be a stressful trip for the next 3 weeks. So just go to the hotel, relax. You know,
So they pick you up from the hotel. They take you over to the docks. Talk to
yeah.
me a little bit about the ship. What can you tell me about the ship?
So the ship is not like one of these huge cruise ships that normally they have in the Caribbean and other places like that. Uh, it's actually there were only 200 passengers total, and even that was big size for Antarctica.
Okay.
Um, and uh, a crew of actually I don't remember the crew size, but uh, so there's two companies involved here. One is the actual ship company that owns the ship, and
Okay.
one is the company I went with for the Antarctica trip that is called Quark Expeditions.
Oh yeah, I've heard of them.
And yeah, okay, so they have their own crew, they have their own guides, and everyone who's planning the actual trip, right? Where should we go and when and all that. Um, and then there's the ship, like hotel facilities on the ship, and the housekeeping staff and bar staff and restaurant staff, and
So
obviously the crew of the ship, who are the captain, cook, and everyone like
so
that.
let me ask you this. Does Quark basically lease the ship, or is it
They do
something
for
that
this one. Yeah,
okay.
they did for this one. Nowadays, I'm hearing that they actually have their own ship.
Okay.
Um, so it's also very, very expensive, but whatever.
In
Um,
fact, do you want to like as we get into talking about the itinerary and what your pathway was going to go? Did you want to take over the screen for just a second in order to show us a little bit about that?
about the ship, you mean?
Yeah, or not just about the ship, but it's in terms of like what your itinerary was going to look like, and in terms of also what the path that you're going to be taking down to Antarctica is going to look
Sure, sure. So let me show you the itinerary. Actually, let me show you the voyage map. They gave us at the end of the trip. They gave us these PDFs of everything that we did on board. Uh, so let me share my screen here.
Sure, go right ahead.
Is that good?
Oh yeah, perfect. That's a
Okay.
great looking map.
So we basically left from here. This is the town of Ushuaia, Argentina.
Okay, so that's at the southern
It's
tip
it's the southern tip.
for the
It's
people
the
on the podcast as well that are listening.
Yeah. So it's the southernmost city in the world. That's another like travel bucket list item for you to check mark. Um, and all the Antarctica sailings go from there,
Okay.
from South America, from Argentina. I'm sorry, not South America, from Argentina. And this is basically these islands that you see over here are Patagonia. The Torres del Paine, they're famous mountains over there,
Hmm.
glaciers, mountains. So we sailed from here, and first our stop was Falkland Islands.
Okay.
Uh, and you can see the dates, like that's how long it took to get there. It was a New Year's Eve sailing. We had a
Yeah,
nice,
that's that. What a little bonus there. That's kind of nice too. So that's
uh,
another thing you get to do is sail, during the New Year's time.
right,
Very
right.
cool.
So first time in my entire life I was not on land on a New Year's Eve. Uh, um,
Oh,
but
by the
yeah,
way,
we had a
was
nice New Year's Eve party on board. We got to meet the other travelers, made some friends that very night that I stuck with for the whole voyage after that. So it
I
was
was going
nice.
to ask you really quick, are the Falkland Islands actually independently owned or are they a part of
No,
Argentina?
no, they're part of United Kingdom.
Oh, they're part of the
Um,
United Kingdom.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they won the war in what was it, 82, 83, something like that.
Okay.
Uh, but Argentina also has its own claim on them, and England has its own claim. It's all politics. Um, so we had a couple of stops in the Falkland Islands on the second day. This on the 3rd of January, you here. Oops, 3rd of January here. That's a town called Stanley. It's the capital of Falkland Islands,
Okay.
and that was the only town that we really went to, like a what you can call a city, even though it's not a city by US standards.
It's a little town.
Yeah, it's a little town. They do have some population. That is the capital of the Falkland Islands, so they have like government buildings and stuff like that,
And a post
uh,
office, I'm sure,
and a
hopefully.
post office, restaurants, and things like that. So we
Oh,
spent some time in Stanley, just walking around, and then we sailed across to South Georgia. Now, South Georgia is officially part of Antarctica continent.
okay.
Uh, so there's this thing called it's kind of abstract, really. It's called the Antarctic Convergence Zone,
Okay.
and it's basically the what differentiates, for example, the Atlantic Ocean over here to the Southern Ocean that borders Antarctica down here,
Okay.
and it's two different ecosystems entirely. Like there's a kind of a biological borderline between the two,
Okay.
um, and uh, it's all around Antarctica. So that's what they've defined as the official border of Antarctica. Uh, so South Georgia falls within that, and it is a wildlife uh, heaven. If you like wildlife as much
Hmm.
as I do,
Yeah.
uh, there are penguins, there are whales, there are fur seals, all kinds of seals, actually, many kind of seals. Uh, uh, Elephant seals are there. All kinds of birds that come over there to nest, albatross species, petrels. Uh, it's just a paradise, wildlife paradise.
Nice. And you spent
Um,
3 days there?
we spent 3 days there, which was actually not part of the plan. So here's the other thing about any Antarctica voyage is that the plan can change on a moment's notice.
Depending upon
and
the weather, I imagine.
depending on a lot of different factors.
Mm.
So we actually, unfortunately, we had a guy on board the ship who got injured in one of our excursions over there.
Oh no.
Yeah, so I don't really know the details of that. They didn't tell us all the details, but he needed to go to a hospital,
Oh gosh.
and there are no hospitals over there. Uh, the only hospital is back on the mainland in Argentina or Chile. So now we are already out like a whole week out from the start of the trip, and this guy needs to go to a hospital. So
Yeah.
what do you do, right? Uh, uh, so the captain and the cruise director, basically our trip planner director, they got together. They decided, okay, so we are going to sail on over here to the spot you see here, number 12. Sorry, number 11 spot over here. Uh, that's where the Chilean base is, and they have an airfield, and we're going to do an emergency evacuation from that airfield back to the mainland in Punta Arenas, Chile. That's
But
the
that's
southernmost city.
but that's still a few days off. So I
That's
mean,
still a few days off, but notice it's like from the 8th to the 11th versus one whole more than a week, like 8 days over there, right? To come, what we had coming in, it was 8 full days. From here to there is just 3 days, 4 days,
yeah.
right? So, and also that would be on regular voyage, anyway.
So let me stop you there for just one second, because around where day 10 is, it looks like you guys have an island called South Orkney Island that's
Right.
there. Did you
There are
guys
lots of
intentionally?
islands.
I was gonna say, did you guys intentionally skip that in order to get over
No,
to the day? Okay, so
no. Or actually, I honestly don't know.
okay,
But no, we did skip it. Uh, it I don't know if they had actually planned to go there or not.
okay.
But yeah. Uh, but we did get to enjoy South Georgia for a good 3-4 days. Now, I don't know if you've seen any wildlife documentaries like National Geographic documentaries with David Attenborough and those kind of
Of
guys narrate.
course. How could you not?
Yeah.
He's a legend.
So they have a lot of um, filming done in South Georgia.
Okay.
So South Georgia has two of the largest king penguin colonies in the world. Uh,
And those things
they,
can get huge.
they can get like 3-4 feet tall, yeah,
Yeah.
up to 3 feet, I think, or 4 feet maybe. Um, and their numbers are tremendous over there. They have one colony, uh, which depending on who you ask, you get different numbers of how many king penguins there are. Anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million to even up to 2 million, I've heard. And the way they count them is by counting like mating pairs. So mating pairs must mean that they're adults, number one,
Mhm.
but it could mean that they already have a chick, or they don't have a chick, or they have more than one chick. The chicks are not counted; they are not mating.
Okay.
So it's actually, they don't even know how many individual members there are in the colony.
But do they do a sampling? I guess there's
Yeah,
really
they
a
do sample size. They say
Yeah.
anywhere between half, but the sample size is like that, right?
Yeah.
Anywhere between 500,000 up to 2 million is the biggest number that I've heard.
Okay.
So,
Still very sizable. Yeah, exactly.
and I remember looking at it, and it's a place called St. Andrews Bay, and there's another one called uh, Salisbury Plain.
Okay.
So there are these two different colonies, and I remember looking at it because we're not allowed to interact with the penguins, like I said earlier, right?
Yeah,
So you
it's a
just
very
stand back
protected
and,
situation.
right, exactly. So they can come to us, but we cannot go to them. So, we have to maintain our distance. But you look at it, and there's like a mountain, and you can see all these tuxedos on the mountain, slope. So it's like filled with all of
A
these
very
nests.
formal
of-
presentation with the penguins coming, all dressed up in their finest. That's great.
It's just incredible sight and smell, unfortunately, also.
Yeah,
Uh,
I heard penguins are not the
um,
best at grooming.
mhm.
So
But you kind of get used to that. Um,
yeah.
and then, of course, like you see, we proceeded southward. Now from this base, that gentleman and his wife, they were evacuated. They went back to Chile, flew back, and the rest of us continued our ship, journey down south. Uh, the number 17, 16th also, I think, is south of the Antarctic Circle.
Okay.
Uh, so, like you have an Arctic Circle in the north, Antarctic Circle in the south. So south of there, the sun will not set during the month of December at all. It will not go below the horizon, right? So you have 24
Nice.
hours daylight, and you and I were chatting earlier about the aurora
Yeah, the Southern Aurora.
borealis, yep, the southern lights. Um, so because the sun does not set, you do not get to see it.
Oh, that's
Sorry,
unfortunate.
sorry to burst your bubble.
But you
Uh,
know what? I would prefer to have a little bit of warmth from the sunlight than like have my entire ship frozen. So
yeah,
that's the handoff there.
yeah. Now there are times now. South Georgia is not like that. South Georgia, the sun does set, and you do get, some nighttime minutes or hours during December, right?
Okay.
But the fact is that it's almost always cloudy. It's you don't have good visibility and stuff like that. So
Mm, okay.
uh, yeah, and we went down. There's this I forgot the name of that island we went to, but there was a hut over there. One of the huts that you were describing,
Yeah.
um, and also wildlife. There were gentoo penguins, some seals that we saw there. Lots of whales everywhere. Whales were all over.
Yeah, let me stop
Um,
you for just one quick second,
mhm.
because for my students that are out there, for those of you who have not seen some of those documentaries, whether they were on National Geographic's or David Attenborough's stuff through a variety of different media, they have these huts that have been frozen quite literally in time, where they have canned meat that's still on the shelf from the 1920s or something like that. So these people, I guess, just abandoned these places, and they were like literally like frozen over in time. When you
Mhm.
have something like certain foods, I mean, obviously they're not edible anymore, but they're
Well, you
not,
never know. They've been frozen. They may be good.
I don't know if I want to eat that much
Actually,
freezer burn.
interesting. There was somebody just recently. There was a news story about someone who brought back a fruit cake from one of the Scott expedition or something like that to the
Hmm.
South Pole. Uh, he was the first person to go to the South Pole, and the fruit cake was apparently edible.
Well,
They
first
brought
off,
back
fruitcake is never edible. So let's get. I'm just kidding.
okay.
For all you people out there who love fruitcake, I don't mean to offend you. I'm just not a fruitcake person, so please forgive me. So okay, so we're on this island. Anyways, sorry, digress. So we're on this island in the Antarctic Circle. You're seeing these different places, whether they're and I'm trying to figure out how amazing that's got to be. Just
Oh, it's I
majesty.
can't even begin to describe it. I mean, I have photos and videos, but you have to be there. It's not just the sights; it's everything. It's the feeling of being there, and you know, very very few people in the world have been south of the Antarctic Circle. Uh, so it's kind of like a badge of honor in a way, um, um, and it is. I mean, I can't even begin to describe how amazing it feels because there's the ice, there's the whole experience of just being out there with all you're in the middle of nowhere, literally in the middle of nowhere. So uh,
You have the
it's just
itinerary as well to show
yeah, I do.
us.
Yeah.
I'd be
So
curious to see
this
that.
is the voyage, but I have the itinerary here.
Mhm.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
All
absolutely.
right.
So they're even giving you longitude and latitude on this specific
Yeah.
printout
So
here.
this right. So this was obviously done as we were progressing. They recorded all this,
Hmm.
and
Because obviously it can change too.
yeah, it can change at a moment's notice.
Okay.
And every day they had like plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. Depending on the weather, depending on anything, right?
Hmm.
Um, so this is just a sample now. The trip that anyone decides to take can vary greatly.
Hmm.
This is what we did, uh, and they recorded. What is the point we went to, right? Each landing. So that many days at sea, you can. I mean, I'm not going to go into the details, but that many days at sea. These are the wildlife that we saw. Visits to this person's farmhouse. They gave us cookies over there. That was very
Yay!
good cookies.
Best cookies in
uh,
all of Antarctica. So there you go. Or just north
uh,
of Antarctica.
yeah, Falkland Islands in that case.
That's right.
Um, so Port Stanley, that's the town I was telling you about. That's the capital of the Falklands. Retail therapy for anyone.
Thank you. I'm glad they have
Not for
stores there
me,
to
but
shop.
whatever. um, and
Well,
but
if you
actually,
want,
and seriously though, they do have pharmacies over there. So if you forget some medicines or something like that, you can you
But
know.
I am glad that they do have like someplace, because there's always you're gonna have people who want to bring home a souvenir of some sort, and you can't bring things back from Antarctica.
No,
You
you
have to
cannot.
leave everything there. So the farthest south, if at least if there's something to say, hey, you know what, I've been here,
Hmm.
apart from just taking away your pictures,
Hmm.
maybe there's something that you can get there, whether it's a rock or something,
No, you
anything.
cannot. You
You
have
can't
to
even take
leave
a
everything
rock with
behind.
you. Okay,
Yeah,
so there
you
you
can't
go.
take anything.
No, but
Um,
from the retail place, whether it's like something that's sewn,
oh,
like
there, yes,
yeah,
there.
like
It's like a regular shop, whatever they sell.
exactly.
Um, so then South Georgia, we had history lessons on board all the time. We had a actually a history professor on board. He was one of our guides.
Excellent.
Um, so they told us about the whaling that was going on over there, the turn of the century, last century.
Hmm.
It was a huge whaling base over there. They I don't want to. Well, I will say this word: they massacred like millions and millions of whales.
Yeah.
Um, and it was basically used for whale oil, for blubber and everything.
Yeah.
Now, uh, so also in South Georgia is the gravesite of uh, Ernest Shackleton.
Mm.
Ernest Shackleton was a famous Southern explorer. Also, he went a lot of places in the world, uh, and he was in a competition with Captain Scott to reach the South Pole. Who would be the first person to reach the South Pole? Scott had already done it for the North Pole. They wanted to go both to the South Pole, and there's a uh, very famous advertisement he had put out in the London newspapers, saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, but more or less like, you know, men wanted, uh, you know, you may die in this expedition. The return is not guaranteed.
Wow, that's a
uh,
selling point.
you will,
Thanks. Where?
you
Sign me
very
up.
well might freeze to death. You'll have all kinds of, but I can promise you an adventure. So,
Those were the times. So nowadays we just go on
uh,
excursions.
yeah, I mean, I'm one of the lucky ones in that sense. I didn't have to do all that stuff.
But they have you. They
Uh,
the next day they had you toast at the Shackleton's
they
grave.
did, they did
Oh
absolutely,
man,
and we actually had a whiskey toast at Shackleton's grave because he loved his whiskey.
apparently
Uh,
kept him
uh,
warm.
uh, so Shackleton's grave is over there at this place called Grytviken.
Okay.
Uh, there's a whaling station, uh, you know, whole bunch of seals, a bunch of penguins, king penguins over there.
Yeah,
Um, uh, Fur seals. Fur seals are vicious. They are scary. Best to keep away from them.
so
But
don't approach.
oh, absolutely not. They are very territorial. They will attack you. They will bite you.
Okay.
And their bites they
Highly
could be deadly.
infectious. Yeah.
Theoretically deadly. Some
Yeah.
cases. Um, uh, and of course, elephant seals are just humongous. So if they fall on you,
You're
you'll be
dead.
crushed.
Yeah.
Um, but it was incredible. I mean, we had our rules. You have to stay away from them. You have to, all these stuff. So um, we had to follow those rules, and the guides were very strict about enforcing all of that. I,
Excellent.
I was actually noticing some people were not following, but they were enforcing it.
That would be
Um,
a little bit of a problem. I
yeah.
think
Well, whatever for a selfie. So that's.
this is true.
Uh, and I mean, all these different islands we went to. Detail
Oh
Island
yeah,
was
that
the
was the one that you were trying to remember the
yeah,
name of the island.
yeah. And another incredibly amazing place is this place called La Mer Channel,
Mm.
and Attenborough has done documentaries. I remember his views of that going through there. It's a tiny little channel, and on my first expedition, actually, which was in December, this one was January. In December, our cruise director had already told us that, hey, there's a chance we may not be able to go through because it could be iced over. So if it is all ice, our ship will not be able to go through it, and it's a matter of luck if we be able to go or not.
And you
And
guys were able to
and
apparently.
we were able to go at that time, and we were able to go a second time.
I
I
want to
was
ask
able to
you.
go a second time.
I want to ask you a quick question because obviously you're not working with an ice-breaking ship. You're not working. I'm assuming that it's double hulled just
Yeah, yeah.
because
They
of.
do have some. Now I don't know the details of that honestly, but they do have some ice protection. Let
Mhm.
me put it that way. Uh, but it's not those kind of icebreakers that you see in the Arctic. You know, those ships.
And you're not having an icebreaker go in front of you to break up
No,
stuff. It's
no,
more
no.
like if it's open,
So
but if it's not, it's not.
no, no. But you do bring up another point that uh, they planned this trip in such a way that we would not see another ship for the whole journey, for
Oh
the whole
wow.
trip. That they want us to be alone. They want, it's only us and no one else. Now, yes, there are other ships that are also doing this. So lots of companies that go down there, but they're all in communication with each other. Uh, and they decide that, okay, today you're going to go here, tomorrow I will go there, things like that. So they make sure that, two of these cruise ships will never see each other.
Can I ask you a quick
Um,
question about communication really quick?
mhm.
Because obviously I would imagine you don't exactly have cell towers down in that area, so
No,
internet
but they
is
they
probably
have
spotty.
they have radio communication. They have they were able to keep it in touch with each other. Like, and the ships are pretty close by. Like, you're not transmitting the signal like long distance. So
Did you have
uh,
internet access while you were on board the ship?
yes, there was.
Okay.
No, I mean, I did not get it, but yes,
But
it was
they had it
available
available for people
for
who
sale.
wanted it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Good.
Um, but it's expensive, and you really, why do you want to be on the internet when you're in Antarctica?
Well, in the evenings. And my friend, you paid $20,000 for a cruise. I think, if you wanted internet,
All
you
the
could
more
certainly.
reason to save on every
Oh,
little small
stop.
thing. Come on.
But I mean, that's the beauty of going on a cruise like this. It actually does force you to interact with people that maybe you haven't interacted with before,
And
talk to new and interesting individuals, build lifelong
very,
relationships and friends.
and I have many of those friends from both of my trips that I've visited since then. I've gone to places where they live around the world,
Hmm,
uh, and I visited with them. So it's been an amazing, and it's been like exactly like you said, like some of them I consider lifelong friends.
yeah.
Um, Hopefully, some of them will watch this and critique me later, saying,
Well,
"Hey, you got that wrong."
let them know, and we'll definitely bring this up. Awesome.
uh,
Any other thoughts on the itinerary before I move on?
no, I mean, we don't have to go through the details, but it gives you an idea of the kinds of things we see there, the kind of places we go, what it's like, things like that, right? So
Wonderful. All right. So let me go back. I'm going to
yeah,
go
take
back
over.
to my thing here really quick. All right. So now, just so just so my students have a little bit of an idea, what was your room like? Was it like a standard kind of hotel room? Was it
Yes.
small, tiny? Like was it double occupancy? Like
Uh,
talk to me about that.
yeah. So, like any other ship, they have all different types, and I had booked a single for myself.
Hmm.
Um, and you can also, if you're a single person traveling, you can also book a double share with someone of the same sex.
Okay.
And or they have triples. So they have single, double, triples.
Okay.
Uh, and triple is basically one bunk bed that you drop down from the wall,
Okay.
and two regular beds on the ground.
And was
Single
this
beds.
was it an inside cabin? Was it a ocean view?
Mine was an inside cabin. They do have cabins on the side of the ship facing they have windows and stuff on the ocean.
I don't know if I
They
wanted
they
to do
also
something
have
like that.
they also have a couple of balcony cabins, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
Um,
But
uh,
that would be really seriously cold, and I imagine your ability to open those windows would be very restricted.
uh, yeah. So the first trip, I actually had one of those. Like, it was a porthole,
Okay.
and uh, I'm trying to remember if I could actually open it. I don't think I could.
For the ocean view?
Yeah, no, but I mean, it was a glass window, so I could see outside, but
Yeah.
I couldn't actually open the window.
Okay.
Uh, and on the second trip, I chose an inside one because I get seasick, so I wanted a like in the center of the ship.
That makes more sense too.
Um,
Yeah.
um,
No, I totally understand that. Let me ask you about the excursions though, because okay, you're getting off at these various different spots
mhm,
in and around Antarctica.
mhm.
Was it something that you had to pre-plan excursions ahead of time with Quark? Did they have like a track A and a track B people could choose from?
Yeah, yeah. So we were split up into four groups of 50 each,
Okay.
and like I said earlier, there were 200 people, 200 passengers on board the ship, and they split us up into four groups. And every morning we had, so the each day, basically the days that we had landings, those were not the at sea days.
Hmm.
Um, So we'd get a wake up call at whatever time in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. Go for breakfast. Immediately after breakfast, we would, in our groups, A, B, C, D, uh, we would split off, and two of the groups with 100 people each would go on the land, have the land excursion along with the guides for 1 hour, 2 hours, depending on their schedule.
Okay, so that's not too
Um,
bad.
yeah, and then the other group of 100 would go on Zodiac cruise around the island, right, or around wherever the guides take us to.
Okay.
And then after that 1 hour is over, then we swap places, and the people that were on the Zodiac cruise come on the land. We go on the water. We go around the Zodiacs. We see whatever marine life there is, um, and icebergs, plenty of icebergs all over. Beautiful formations and all that kind of stuff. Um, and then we come back to the ship. Now, by the time we get back to the ship, it's lunchtime, so we have lunch.
Hmm.
It's usually a buffet lunch,
Yes.
so it's quick. While we are eating lunch, the ship repositions to our next landing spot,
Okay.
and then it's the same thing repeated in the afternoon, evening excursion, afternoon excursion.
Okay, so they actually
Um,
have a morning series of excursions, and then they had an evening version of excursions.
right.
Now that's interesting. That's a little different than some of the other cruise lines that I've worked with previously.
Yeah, because there are multiple ships that want to make the same landing,
And
right?
you don't, and again, obviously because of the time of year, you don't have to worry about the sun going down.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's an
But
or
honestly, we were always back at a reasonable time of the day, uh, and we were never out too late. Now on the first trip, they had an option for camping and things. So people went camping, different subject, but uh, but
camping in
then
Antarctica. That might be a little cold.
uh, so we got back from the second excursion, had dinner, and there would usually be some kind of program after dinner, like a movie or a lecture. We'd have like a debriefing at the end of the day, like what we saw, what we did right, what we did wrong. uh, we used to have like trivia games, like I guess the normal cruise ship stuff, though there's I haven't
Yeah.
been in any cruises, but other cruises. uh, and same thing repeated next day. They would brief us about what we're going to do the next day, what other things to watch out for. Don't go here. Watch out for the fur seals. Don't touch the penguins. You. I saw you touching these penguins over there. Don't do that again. you know.
please
Um,
don't please don't touch the wildlife.
uh, so stuff like that. And uh, the bar would be open,
Of course, got to stay warm somehow. Yeah.
uh, and the decks on the ship are always open 24 hours. Uh,
Oh, you know what? I
uh,
want to ask you. It was in general on most ships they usually have a designated area for people who are smokers. Do they have something
yeah.
similar to that? Oh, okay, I
Yes,
wasn't sure.
absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, and actually, I don't think I ever even saw any smokers on board. None of us were. I don't think so. Maybe there were, but
If there were, they have to
um,
be outside, and it's like, wow, it could be really
yeah,
cold on the outside.
yeah,
So just be careful.
yeah.
Okay, so then after the 17 days, then you make your
Hmm.
way back up to um,
Ushuaia.
Ushuaia. Okay,
Hmm.
and then from there on to Buenos Aires. What was the
It's the reverse. Yeah.
what was the disembarkation process like? How easy was it?
Uh, Relatively straightforward.
Okay,
Um, Actually, no. I want to mention one more point
sure,
that I wasn't aware of. I'm sorry. Going back to the trip itself.
sure.
So every day before we get out of the ship and after we come back onto the ship, they used to have a biological uh, hose down. Um, so we used to have to clean our boots. Like they had a pan of kind of soap water with
Okay,
some chemicals in there. So we had to step in there. That would disinfect everything, and then we could go onto the land. And coming back, same thing. Step on that. If we had any kind of feathers or anything that had to be taken out,
yeah.
we're not allowed to bring anything back from there. Not allowed to put anything over there. They're very very strict about that. So I like that about this company, and I guess all companies do the same. But yeah, so disembarkation, we actually had to do that again. Like on the last day, they had us, all bring our the parkas, the jackets, sweaters, gloves, everything that we've been putting on top, on the top layer, um, and they go through it. They see if there's any kind of seeds, if there's any kind of dirt.
Wow, it's really
Uh,
they scrutinize you a lot.
yeah, yeah. So you have to clean all of that up. And then you're checked off the list. You're fine. You go back, and disembarkation is simple. You just get off the ship. In the end, finally, when it's time to do that, you just go, um, and you pay. Obviously, you settle any bills and whatever you have
Sure.
expenses on the ship.
Gratuities and things like that, I would
Yeah,
imagine. Yeah,
yeah.
that makes
Um,
sense.
uh, Now I mentioned the post office.
Yes. Talk to me about the
um,
furthest southern post office in the world.
uh, there's a British outpost called Port Lockroy,
Port Lockroy.
and it's also a Gentoo penguin colony,
Okay.
and uh, they have a post office and a shop.
Hmm.
So at a shop, I actually bought like an Antarctica sweatshirt.
Okay, well there you go. There's
Uh,
your souvenir.
um, and all those proceeds go to the museum and everything, all the charities that they fund.
See, that's great. I like that.
Yeah. And you can now you can buy a postage stamp that says Antarctica on it. You can have the stamp, on your postcard or whatever, stamped with Antarctica, Port Lockroy, Antarctica, and
Nice.
you can mail it home. Now, how do you think it's going to get mailed home? Right? There's no mail carriers over there, so
Our ship, I imagine, is the one that's gonna bring it back up there.
so uh,
I actually did something very similar when I was in. I actually many years ago I took a cruise in Hawaii, and I'm not sure if you're familiar, but with cruises they have maritime law where you
mhm,
have to go to a foreign port.
mhm,
So because I was traveling within the Hawaiian Islands, we had to find a foreign port, and we went 1,500 nautical miles south to a place called Fanning Island, which is the very top part of the Republic of Kiribati. And so
hmm.
we went there to drop off supplies, and that was our foreign
Yeah,
port.
they do a lot of that. They do a lot
Yeah.
of that. They do trash cleanups for the ships.
Yeah.
They do water drop-offs in different bases and things like that. Uh, there's a lot of cargo that is going back and forth also on the same cruise ships.
Well, and then from there,
Um,
obviously, Falkland Islands is, a British colony as well. So,
yeah,
you have
yeah.
that too. So,
Mhm.
very cool. Awesome. So, how long again did it take you to get back?
It's the same process in reverse. So we got off the ship. They had a bus waiting for us. They actually took us around a little bit in southern Patagonia
Hmm.
uh, as like a half a day tour, kind of in the bus tour.
Okay.
Uh,
So, it's kind of
and
decompressing a little bit.
yeah, yeah, and then straight to the airport, and you fly from Ushuaia to Buenos Aires on a chartered plane. Uh, but chartered plane, but it's a like a kind of a 727, 737 kind of a jet,
Oh, so
200
it's not
people
so
on
it's not
board.
like a prop plane or anything like
No,
that.
no, no.
Oh, thank
Uh,
goodness.
um, and then from Ushuaia, you have your onward flight, which you have booked yourself. Your original round trip. So that so their dropping off point is back to Buenos Aires, and then you're on your own basically. You
So
can
then
either
back up
stay there,
to
you can go somewhere else if you want. You can do whatever you feel like after that, and
okay.
fly back home.
Perfect.
Um,
Awesome. Well, let me ask you this really quick. What if you had to speak to one of my students, and this is going to be their first time, and they want to go on a similar type of venture? What are the pros? What are the advantages of going on a trip like this?
uh, Let me answer that from, if I may, from a different point of view. Uh, what do your prospective travelers want to do, right?
Mhm.
Like to see. So if it is wildlife, if it is wildlife is number one, by the way. If it is nature scenery, uh, these two things are the pros of Antarctica. Uh, there are a lot of things that are not so pleasant when you go there. For example, the cold weather, the winds. If you have a medical situation and you need evacuation, that is a very bad, you know, situation that you would be in. Um, uh, so you genuinely, it has to come from within you, not what, I'm sorry, but not watching something like this. It has to be, you know, um, like your genuine desire, not to mention the amount of money that you're spending to go on a trip like
Yeah,
this.
it is an investment.
So
This is like
yeah,
buying a new car. You have to be
yeah,
prepared for
almost, yeah, it really does cost that much too.
and there's a lot of
Uh,
planning that goes into this in
right,
advance. What to
right.
pack,
So
how to
it
pack.
has to come from inside of you that yes, I am desperate to go to Antarctica. I need to go to Antarctica. You know, but I promise you, the experience will be worth it. I've been twice. I can't wait to go back again.
Wow.
Um, I'm just in love with that place. It is so beautiful. You never know what you're going to see because you're out in nature. You never know the behavior of all these animals and the birds. The penguins are extremely funny to watch them. Uh, just the way they interact with each other, it's nothing like you've seen on March of the Penguins movie. Uh, I mean, part of it is there, but
No
uh,
happy feet. It's not similar. Okay, got it.
I mean, some of it is there, but it's just you never know what you're going to see. And uh, just recently, I was a couple of days ago. I showed you that photo earlier
Mhm.
about. Sorry, I didn't show you the photo, but I wrote an essay about it. That uh, came across this Gentoo penguin colony,
Mhm.
and there are these two penguins out there. It was a very hot day. It was above freezing. That's what I mean by very hot. And the penguins must have been miserable. They must have felt miserable because they're not built for that. But they're still going about their daily lives. There was a male penguin, a female penguin. The male wanted to approach the female. The female kept slapping him away with its flipper, and the male wanted to
Like,
just
stop.
keep keep going and wanted to kind of hold hands like hold flippers. And the female wouldn't have it, so she just kept flapping him away, and he just kept going
It's like
more and
no
more in.
means no.
And it was just like all of us were standing over there and we were like hysterical, we were just laughing like anything. This was on the first trip, not on this second trip. And it was like you never know what you're going to see there. I've seen YouTube videos of another penguin who was being chased by an orca,
Oh yeah,
and
that could be
and
serious.
and the penguin basically jumped onto the Zodiac boat and just stood in the Zodiac, and people are seeing this. There are people videotaping on their phones this orca trying to eat this penguin, and the penguin just jumps onto the boat.
It it's resourceful. I'll grant you
Mhm.
that. Um,
It's
and
just incredible. The wildlife, the whales, the birds, the albatross, all these colonies that you see there. Uh,
and that elusive and to
the
have that
ice,
like check mark on the elusive seventh continent that
yeah,
almost nobody on this planet has.
yeah. That would be the lowest priority in my opinion.
Well, true, but
um, uh, it's just an incredible, incredible, life-changing experience. I can't wait to go back.
excellent. Now, in terms of things to be aware of, you brought up a lot of them.
Mhm,
Obviously, limited resources to work
mhm,
with, the costs of something like this,
mhm,
hospitalization or the emergencies, what happens in those types of situations. So being prepared and planning for any possible situation, or talking with someone like yourself who's been, that gives people a better idea as to if I'm looking to go on a trip like this, especially with someone like you, because you've traveled there not just once but twice now, and so you've
so far.
experienced. Yeah, exactly. So you've had to see a couple of different situations that have occurred. Obviously don't get disappointed if you're not able to meet a certain port. That just comes with understanding, stuff is going to happen, whether it's
Hmm.
emergencies, whether it's weather situations,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
But for the most part, it sounds like they try to accommodate in getting you out, and they plan the trips around a certain time of year, so that
Hmm.
way you have the ability to visit and go in certain places.
Right. And there's always a plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. There's a backup plan, backup to backup, and all of this in case the first plan doesn't work. They have it all in their agenda, right? Like we can go to any number of these islands today, and we have our preferences. But if we cannot do that, we'll go somewhere else. It's fine.
Yeah. And then in terms of value adds, cost savings, and best practices, would you recommend booking through a travel agent? Would you recommend going and booking directly through Quark or a different,
Uh,
line?
so I personally booked directly through Quark,
Okay.
and that gave me a pretty big discount on the second trip. Like it
Oh, nice.
basically made it affordable for me to go on the second trip. So I basically got like almost 45% off on the second
Oh,
time.
wow. That's a huge
Um,
savings.
yeah, because I was a repeat customer and because they had a sale at the same time going on and a lot of different reasons. Uh, so, uh, you know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know whether it's better to go directly through the company or through a travel agent who may have like their own deals.
Hmm.
But definitely research it because we are talking about a lot of money.
Yeah.
Um, and you should research it. You can call up whether it's Quark or whether it's any of the other companies that that offer this, and there are many. You can call up their sales agent and talk to them on the phone and say, "Hey, I'm planning this. What do you offer? What do you recommend?" Things like that. They know their place the best.
How
Uh,
helpful would you say that, or how
oh,
knowledgeable
for
would you say
me,
they are?
for me, very knowledgeable, and not just that, but they remembered me the second time, which I was shocked. There were a few guides that I had like a repeat on the second trip,
Yeah.
and they actually remembered me. Now I don't know how many people they see every year, right? And
Well, a
they,
couple hundred per trip.
yeah.
It's not a couple of thousand like you do on a conventional cruise
Well,
vessel.
even then, like they're always on the whole trip every season, right? From
Mm.
our summer over here in the northern hemisphere, sorry, our winter in the northern hemisphere, their summer. Um, uh, so I was shocked that more than one of them actually remembered my name, the fact that individual experiences that we had shared, uh, you know, on the previous trip. Uh, it's incredible. I mean, these
Well,
are wonderful. All the guides over there, I just cannot praise them enough.
I've actually had an
Yeah.
experience similar to that when we were on a cruise of the Baltics a few years ago, and we just met like a host as we were going into a main dining hall, and he met us, and that was it. And on a ship like that, that's like the specific ship I was on was one of the largest that Princess has.
Mm.
It was called the Regal Princess, and it's over somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 passengers. It's huge. And so we went back, I want to say about 3 days later, and he remembered us on site. He was like, "Oh my gosh, how was your dinner the other night? Did you guys have a great time? What about the wine I recommended? What did you think of that?"
Hmm.
And I'm
Hmm.
like, "How do
Yeah,
you remember?"
yeah, exactly.
And I'm told that they have very specific customer service training that
Hmm.
involves, working with, picking up on certain people's behaviors, understanding, memories, and working with people. So if people say something, it's kind of like that's kind of a trigger for you to be able to remember that. So I think it's fantastic that their customer service works in such a way that it creates a really good, memorable experience, a positive
Hmm.
experience for
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
So great work. Well, Ishaan, this is our first time together. I definitely want to talk with you again. You have a tons of things to share, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much for sharing with me and my students. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks. And then again, for my students that are out there, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email me at scott@theprofessortravel.com. If you're watching this on YouTube, click the bell icon right above us here in order to be notified about when new videos come out. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it certainly helps out the channel. And then finally, if you like the content of this and you want to see more of it, hit that like button in order to be able for us to get you more of that same thing. If you are, however, listening on a podcast, please feel free to rate us. I really appreciate that. And until next time, make every day a travel adventure. Take care, everybody. Bye bye now.
Keep